There's action for you on ITV4 right now as our movie Remo Williams is just starting. Here, it's the ITV News.
Over the past 18 months, I've been coming to terms with and seeking to cope with a drink problem.
Coming clean, an ITV News investigation forces Charles Kennedy to admit what he's long denied. Shortly after we presented our revelations to Mr. Kennedy, he called a press conference to admit his problems with alcohol. But has he lost the trust of his party? And can he survive a leadership contest he's called tonight? Also this evening, Sharon fights for his life as doctors say his political career is over.
Tonight, as Ariel Sharon lies critically ill in hospital, the question is what effect the departure of this colossus will have on politics in the Middle East.
Find her killers, the desperate plea from the father of Katherine Horton. And in sport, transfer merry-go-round, who's buying who in soccer's big sale.
In the south, the parents of a boy with special needs says he shouldn't have been forced to go to a mainstream school.
Good evening. It wasn't quite "I'm Charles and I'm an alcoholic," but the Lib Dem leader finally came clean today. He confessed he had a drink problem, but only after ITV News uncovered evidence he had admitted an alcohol addiction to senior colleagues and was having treatment for it. Until today, he'd flatly denied it in public. This evening, he said he wished he'd talked about it openly. He threw his party into still more turmoil by announcing a leadership contest, and what's more, he's standing. His admission was triggered by a call we made to his office at 4:04 this afternoon. By 4:30, his office announced he'd be making a statement, and at almost 5 to 6, he did just that. Had he not done so, our chief political correspondent Daisy McAndrew would have broken the story of our investigation on our evening news at 6:30. She joins us now from Liberal Democrat headquarters. Daisy, a dramatic day.
Mark, a very dramatic day for anybody interested in politics, anybody involved in politics. But let's not forget, a very sad day for Liberal Democrats, and particularly for Charles Kennedy and his supporters. And it's his supporters and his friends and his fellow MPs who've been speaking to me and been speaking to ITV News over the last 24 hours, saying that they have now lost patience with Charles Kennedy. They've watched him struggle with a drink problem. They've watched him deny having a drink problem. And they said to me, some of them watched him destroying the Liberal Democrat Party.
Many who've worked closely with Charles Kennedy have thought it for years, and today he finally admitted it in public.
Over the past 18 months, I've been coming to terms with and seeking to cope with a drink problem. And I've come to learn through that process that any drink problem is a serious problem indeed. It's serious for yourself, and it's serious for those round about you.
And it was very serious for those Lib Dems working with him. As one shadow cabinet member told ITV News, the more you know, the more horrified you become. And our investigation discovered just how bad things were. It was in a meeting back in the early summer of 2004 that Kennedy first admitted being an alcoholic to some of his closest political allies. 4 senior office holders of the party were so fed up following repeated no-shows and poor performances they believed to be alcohol-induced that they called an emergency meeting with Kennedy in his private office. One of those present at the meeting told this programme that Kennedy was forced to admit to having a drink problem. After initial denials, he said, "Yes, I am an alcoholic." Our inquiry went on to discover that he's been receiving private medical treatment for his problem since then, something he admitted today.
I've sought professional help, and I believe today that this issue is essentially resolved. People close to me know that this has been a struggle, and that for extended periods I've consumed no alcohol at all. As a matter of fact, I haven't had a drink for the past 2 months.
Many senior aides do think the therapy has helped him, but were exasperated by his constant denials that he drank too much.
I certainly do not have a drink problem, no. I've always been a sociable person, as you well know, over the years,
and I'm not about to change that. But that is no impediment or interference with my life in general or leadership in particular.
But one MP who's been close to Charles Kennedy described his private office as lurching from one crisis to another, pulling him out of the abyss. And during the election campaign, some MPs believed his inability to answer policy questions ruined their manifesto launch.
You're talking in the region of 20... yeah, I mean, if you take a double income couple, 20,000 each, that's what you're talking about. 40,000 pounds. 40,000 pounds, sorry. Yes, 40,000 pounds.
And it was following performances like that that one senior MP told ITV News the brightest and best MPs want him out. And many thought following the election he'd voluntarily leave the job, preserving his dignity. Far from it. And his continued poor performances led another senior MP to tell us that he's destroying the party, bringing the party down, and that it would be unimaginable he'd fight a leadership election. But that's precisely what he wants.
So let me be clear. I consider myself to be capable and in good health, and I remain politically determined as the leader of our party.
But Kennedy will now have to wait and see whether he can convince the rest of his party that he's fit enough to run it. Daisy McAndrew, ITV News.
Well, Mr Kennedy said he hadn't admitted his drink problem before because he wanted to deal with it in private. But by denying it in the past, has he forfeited the trust of his party? It seems, from what some are saying tonight, that trust had already gone. Our political correspondent, Libby Vina, joins us now. Libby.
Far from ending the speculation about his leadership, Charles Kennedy's statement tonight has plunged the party into turmoil. Some activists told us that they had sympathy for him as a man and they still supported him. But many senior figures believe that his statement is so at odds with his earlier pronouncements that he can't survive.
Has it been a battle to stay off the booze? Have you had to have medical support in any way at all?
No. You take that is not the case.
Just 3 weeks ago, he was still denying it. So can Charles Kennedy recover his party and the people's trust? For these Liberal Democrats in southwest London tonight, he'd won the sympathy vote.
And he has decided very bravely, in my opinion, to make this public. I don't think he's lied in any way whatsoever.
Can you still trust him?
Yes, I feel we can. I think he has been very brave in saying what he's got to say.
But many senior Liberal Democrats don't see it that way. Potential rivals have said they won't challenge Charles Kennedy, but can they back him after he changed his story?
Well, I think he would have been wise to have been more upfront at an earlier point, but he said that himself in his statement. But he has now come clean. It's a medical condition he's got, and it has to be dealt with in that way.
Well, I don't think it's a question of trust. The question is whether he's able to unify the parliamentary party, because he's very popular among the members and indeed among the public. They can see that he's a human being. In fact, if anything, I think we now know that he's all too human.
Many believe that putting himself up for election is in fact a huge gamble that could miss the mark. His deputy, Ming Campbell, has ruled out standing if Kennedy stands, as has his Home Affairs spokesman Mark Oaten.
Isn't it a bit of a farce when two of the other main candidates can't possibly take part now in this leadership contest?
Well, everybody has to make their own decisions. I'm here because I'm the president of the party elected by all the members to try to manage the party's best interests, and we have been asked by the leader to have an election.
But can you have an election with just one person in it?
Yes, you can.
But for some senior MPs, he's the one candidate they don't want. This crisis is far from over. Libby Vina, ITV News, Westminster.
Well, joining me from Norwich is Norman Lamb, a member of the Liberal Democrat Shadow Cabinet. Mr Lamb, thanks for joining us. You're one of the senior figures who signed a letter saying you'd lost confidence in him. His position is untenable now, isn't it?
Well, we felt before Christmas that the position had become extremely difficult, and what we wanted to do very privately was to give him the opportunity, the space over Christmas and the New Year to reach a judgment about the seriousness of the situation and perhaps leave with his dignity intact, and for us all to be able to reflect on the very impressive achievements of his leadership. Now, he hasn't done that. He's made a statement today. It was a brave and indeed impressive performance today. And it was an approach that I'd encouraged them to take a long time ago. My sadness is that it's happened so late.
But you say brave. I mean, we wouldn't have done it had we not confronted him with our revelations, would he?
Well, as I say, my judgment and my advice was that this should have happened a long time ago. And I think in Charles's own interests, the difficulty we've all had is that we all have an enormously high regard for Charles. We want him to recover fully. But we also have to make a very careful and professional judgment about what is in the best interests of the party.
Right.
And
So
the principles that we stand for.
So you're saying he's wrong to put himself up, he should stand aside, and who should take over, do you think?
Well, I think, look, we've all been taken by surprise by this statement this evening. I think it's a time for some very careful reflection. I think we need some space, 24, 48 hours, to discuss the situation. And as I say, to reach a careful judgment about what is in the best interest of the party and what is in the best interest of what we are trying to fight for, the interests of liberal democracy.
OK, Mr Lamb, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
So let's rejoin Daisy McAndrew. Well, it's pretty clear, isn't it, Daisy? Some senior figures want him to go. He's fighting on. Is he fatally damaged, do you think?
Well, I think as Libby Wiener's piece and your interview with Norman Lamb there showed, it depends on who you ask. As far as the parliamentary party is concerned, his fellow MPs, I think most of them do think he's fatally flawed, yes. But it's not them who decide who the leader should be. It's the wider Lib Dem party and membership who decide. And I think there is quite a rift now between the parliamentary party and the wider party, who probably do still support Charles Kennedy. They've got a natural gut instinct to support him because they feel sorry for him, and they're quite impressed that he's come clean about his drink problem. I suspect, though, in a couple of weeks' time, when they stop to think about the number of lies that he's told about his drinking, that support might go. But of course, we don't yet know who, if anybody, is going to stand against Charles Kennedy in this forthcoming leadership campaign. It's possible, as Libby said, there might be nobody. Personally, I think that's unlikely, and the MPs have got a couple of weeks to decide who to put forward.
OK, Daisy, thank you very much indeed. Coming up later in the programme, united in grief, backpacker Katherine Horton's father appeals for help in catching her killer. But first, he survived wars and political defeat, but tonight Israel's Prime Minister Ariel Sharon is fighting what could be his last battle, the battle for life. His condition is critical after his brain hemorrhage. Loathed by Palestinians, lionised by Israelis, but what's in no doubt at all, as Julian Mannion reports from Jerusalem, is his domination of Middle East politics.
This was the last brief glimpse of Ariel Sharon as an ambulance rushed him to hospital last night. Since then, his condition has worsened and he's been fighting for his life after a massive hemorrhage in the brain. There's no longer any talk of Sharon resuming his duties or taking part in the elections set for March. The question now is quite simply whether he can survive.
We are fighting for the life of the Prime Minister without any compromise.
Only 6 weeks ago, Ariel Sharon turned Israeli politics upside down with his announcement that he was leaving the governing Likud party and founding his own movement. Today he has undergone 2 lengthy operations, and tonight, as police and journalists surround the hospital, he lies heavily anaesthetised. Doctors say he may remain like that for 3 days. The medical crisis began only hours after he was filmed meeting Israeli bankers. It was a display of business as usual after a smaller stroke briefly forced him into hospital 2 weeks ago. Then he was released amid optimistic predictions. But today the hospital was forced to deny rumours that he is already dead. For Israelis, Ariel Sharon is a symbol of their history. A brilliant general who led the dramatic Israeli counterattack across the Suez Canal in the 1973 war. But a man who was also tarnished by his association with the massacre of Palestinians and refugee camps in the Lebanon. This year, Prime Minister Sharon pushed through Israel's withdrawal from Gaza, giving hope that the man of war was finally turning his mind to peace. For Israelis, Sharon has come to personify their country's security.
It's very bad to the Israel state. It's a very important man in all this situation of Israel.
Ariel Sharon has been a colossus in Israel and a towering figure in the Middle East. But now it seems that era is at an end. Julian Mannion, ITV News, Jerusalem.
Well, Sharon's powerful presence has relied on a combination of mental toughness forged in the chaos of war and his political skill. But as Julian Mannion was saying, now it seems certain his domination of Israel's political life is over. It's a huge and dangerous void. The question is, who, if anyone, can fill it? Sharon, the hardline general turned peacemaker politician, recently formed his new centre party, Kadima. But his deputy, Ehud Olmer, is a career politician, not a soldier, and unlikely to have the same support as Sharon. On the right, his old Likud party is now led by the former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He may benefit from the vacuum, but he's implacably opposed to any compromise at all with the Palestinians. On the left, Amir Peretz's Labour Party is already adrift in the polls as elections in March approach. The danger now is that the winners from all this could be at the extremes of both Israeli and Palestinian politics, and the loser is almost certain to be the peace process itself. Well, that's all for the future. Julian Mannion is outside the hospital in Jerusalem tonight. Julian, what's the latest on his condition?
Well, the latest news here at the Hadassah Hospital is the doctors will carry out another scan tomorrow, but they will not seek to wake him from the deep anaesthesia in which he presently rests. And in fact, he's not expected to wake from that anaesthesia now until Sunday. And it's not until then, doctors say, that they will be able to come to any firm conclusions about the amount of damage that his brain has suffered from this terrible cerebral hemorrhage, and indeed what the prognosis is in terms of his mental abilities and above all of his ultimate survival. What can be said, however, at the moment is that the doctors have established that there has been definite damage to part of his brain. It's not surprising in these circumstances. And beyond that, there is a small cause of optimism, which is that when playing light on his pupils, the pupils of his eye have responded, indicating that there is brainstem function. But the one thing the doctors here are saying is that it is very, very unlikely that Ariel Sharon will ever return to work at the helm of Israel again.
Julian Mannion, many thanks. Now, in the last half hour, police investigating an alleged attack on a 3-year-old girl in Cardiff have charged a 26-year-old man with kidnap and 4 serious sexual offences. The child was snatched from her home in Rumney on Monday. Police think the girl was taken from inside her home. She was only found when the car she was travelling in crashed 80 miles away in Wiltshire. There's been yet another day of bloody violence in Iraq with at least 130 people killed in a series of attacks. In the worst, a suicide bomber killed more than 60 and injured 120 more at a shrine in Kabbalah, south of Baghdad. 60 police recruits also died as a bomber struck in Ramadi, south of the Iraqi capital. In Saudi Arabia, 20 people have been killed in a building collapse in the holy city of Mecca. It was being used as a hostel during the annual Hajj pilgrimage. A government official says the building's foundations were cracked and weak. It was the saddest of journeys and ended with the saddest of thoughts. The father of murdered backpacker Katherine Horton arrived in the Thai island where she was staying and said, "Only a parent who's lost a child can know how I feel." Our Asia correspondent John Irvine now on Ian Horton's tribute to his daughter, the 21-year-old he called "my little girl."
Katherine came to Thailand to dance on a beach, to ride an elephant, to have a vacation. I'm Katherine's father.
Few of us can know what he and his family are going through, but he was brave and dignified.
My words cannot express how I feel now. Only a parent who's lost a child can know.
Ian Horton was flanked by his son and by Ruth Adams, Katherine Horton's companion on a fateful holiday.
The perpetrator is probably too cowardly to offer themselves to the Thai justice. But there is a person here that knows. A person that can assist the police. Someone that can maybe save another life. I urge that person to come forward and speak out. Katherine was my little girl. Please help me.
Before leaving here, Ian Horton praised the diligence of the Thai police, and tonight there are reports that detectives are questioning a man whom they regard as significant to their investigation. John Arvine, ITV News, Koh Samui, Thailand.
The hunt for Katherine Horton's killer. Now to today's news from the markets. The FTSE closed at 5,691, down 23 points. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones closed up 2 points at 10,882. And on the currency markets, the pound is trading at €1.45 this evening, down a fraction of a cent. Sport now with Lisa Knight, and a big day on the transfer markets.
Indeed it has been, and Manchester United will be hoping that their defensive deficiencies will be a thing of the past. They've just signed Serbia and Montenegro's Nemanja Vidic. Big things expected from him. Well, Liverpool have also unveiled a new international today. Dutch right-back Jan Kromkamp has arrived from Villarreal as a swoop deal from Hossamy, and the Dutchman has instantly endeared himself to the fans. He was part of the Villarreal team that dumped Manchester United out of this season's Champions League.
If Liverpool comes along, then the choice is not so hard to make, I think, because it was always a dream of me to play in England, and if you can make part in this great club to play here, then the choice is very easy, I think.
And one other significant move has seen Chris Sutton leave Celtic and move south to join Birmingham City on a free. Now, this weekend is when football dreams can come true. Yes, the third round of the FA Cup is here again, and non-league Burton Albion are hoping somehow to upset the mighty Manchester United. Here's our sports correspondent, Geraint Vincent.
Well, it's early January, so as well as all the coughs and colds going around at this time of year, there are also the beginnings of cup fever. And if the Brewers can pull off a miracle against Manchester United this weekend, then in Burton, there'll be a serious outbreak.
And the man taking centre stage in this pick of the third round ties is the former England, Forest and Liverpool star Nigel Clough. Unlike his father Brian, he doesn't love the limelight. And he spent the last 7 years guiding a team of bricklayers and security guards through non-league football. And in the run-up to a massive game for them, the boss is severely realistic about his side's chances.
We're not good enough to change our style or anything. We'll just have to work that little bit harder than we normally do to stand any chance at all.
What chance do you stand?
Very little.
It won't be the first time Sir Alex Ferguson has visited Burton Albion's new stadium. 2 months ago, he was here to open it. Since then, though, the pitch has suffered from a few drainage problems, and it'll be interesting to see how the United Stars cope with it in what will be the biggest occasion in Burton Albion's history. And if anyone's in any doubt about that, this is the hometown of another football favourite, and for this game, the factory's produced some special edition Bovril. Geraint Vincent, ITV News, Burton-on-Trent.
Andy Murray says he's not worried about his form despite defeat in the second round of the Adelaide International. The 18-year-old Scot lost in 3 sets to Czech Thomas Berdych, but remains confident ahead of the Australian Open later this month. Australia's Glenn McGrath has been given an official reprimand after using obscene language in the third test against South Africa in Sydney. His side trailed by 186 runs with 1 remaining. And that is all your sport tonight. Mark.
Thanks very much indeed. Lisa, coming up in a few minutes, the newspapers give their judgment on Charles Kennedy's announcement. That's after we've linked up again with ITV newsrooms around the UK, waiting with the news where you are. Join me again.
Good evening. The news now in the south. He was suspended from school after threatening a teacher, but the parents of Rhys Graham, who's 10, says it's the education system which is failing him. Although they don't deny that what he did was wrong, they believe it's Dorset's policy of inclusion in mainstream education rather than being sent to a special school which doesn't help him, his teachers or his classmates. Martin Dowse has the story.
To meet 10-year-old Rhys Graham on a good day when his medication is working is to meet a well-mannered, happy and clearly intelligent young man. But just before Christmas, he was suspended from his primary school in Weymouth for threatening a teacher with a pair of scissors. Rhys suffers from ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and the incident happened during one of the frequent outbursts of anger of which he has no memory.
I just can't control myself when it happens, and I lose my memory as well.
You can't remember anything when these...
Some of it, but most of it I can't remember.
Reese's parents are angry with an education system in Dorset which promotes inclusion. That's sending children like Reese to mainstream rather than special schools. And they believe it's just all about cost.
I'm sure that it's based on funding, that they don't want to spend the money because it does cost money. I mean, you know, but a child's life, what cost do you put on that? You remember your school days. It's 7 working hours of your day is taken up at school, and he's losing it.
Reese's parents plan to keep him out of school until the Education Authority offers them a non-mainstream alternative. Martin Dowse on Portland for Meridian News.
An investigation is underway after a man was killed in a car crash near Ringwood. The vehicle left the road and hit a tree on the A31 yesterday. A woman also in the car was taken to hospital with serious injuries. A man arrested in connection with a sexual assault in Hampshire has been released without charge. A 33-year-old woman claims she was grabbed as she walked along Hasler Road in Gosport yesterday. She was then taken to nearby Trinity Green, where the alleged attack took place. Customers and staff have been paying tribute to a hotel owner who's disappeared without trace after a holiday on the Hampshire coast. Barbara Lant runs the Royal Hotel in Scotland. However, the 60-year-old vanished 6 days ago while she was staying with her partner in Barton-on-Sea. She'd asked him to pick up a takeaway, and when he returned 20 minutes later, she was gone.
I was quite shocked, and I thought it was quite weird that she had disappeared, because she's quite attached to everybody in Fraserburgh. She loves her sister very much.
A community in Dorset is being asked to help a 3-year-old take her first steps. Sophie Pritchett from West Moors near Ferndam has a form of cerebral palsy, which means she can't properly control her arms and legs. However, her parents believe if they had a hydrotherapy pool at their home, her chances of walking would be greatly increased, as Ian Axton reports.
Most little girls this age are running rings around their parents, but the only way Sophie Pritchett can move around is by pulling herself along the ground or by rolling over. Sophie was born at just 26 weeks.
And you sort of just about hold her on your hand, really, about that big.
And these were some of her first clothes?
Yeah, when she was about sort of 3 or 4 weeks old and she could actually get into clothes. These were actually still a bit big for her.
And there's a nappy somewhere here as well.
Where's your nappy, Sophie? Where's the nappy? Thank you. Yeah, this was actually also too big for her. Can you show it to Ian?
You show me your nappy. It's tiny.
It was caused either by a lack of oxygen when she was born or by the meningitis that she contracted just 2 weeks later. But there is hope that one day she will be able to walk, but the chances of that are so much greater if she gets to exercise her muscles every day. That's why the community is running events like this to raise £4,000 to buy Sophie a hydrotherapy pool.
We would like to have her in the pool every day, exercising those muscles, so that when she can actually start to walk, she has actually still got some muscles left to walk with, because the muscles are really sort of wasting away.
Watching your child take its first steps is a memorable moment for any parent, but for Sophie's family it'll mean so much more.
I can't describe what it would mean. To see her just take a few steps, it would mean the world of difference for her, and it would just mean everything to us. It would be brilliant.
Ian Axton in West Moors for Meridian News.
Sport now, and Leon Knight's turbulent time with Brighton Hove Albion Football Club is over. After the highs of scoring against local rivals Crystal Palace and the goal that promoted the club to the Championship, there have been a number of rows with Seagulls manager Mark McGee about his attitude. The 23-year-old striker has joined Swansea tonight for a £125,000 and an undisclosed sell-on clause. Now, it seems that if you're a teacher in Brighton, you should be at the pinnacle of good health. A new survey has found the city to be the healthiest in the UK. However, in comparison, Southampton came out as the unhealthiest in the south. And as far as the best professions are concerned, teachers are top of the class, whilst it's a different story if you're a mechanic. I wonder what it is if you're a weatherman. Here's Martin Davis with the forecast.
See France, Dover Cali Ferries, sponsors of Meridian Weather.
Hello, good evening. It's probably a good job that the skies weren't quite as clear as this today. If they were, we'd be heading for a very clear and very cold night. As it is, the clouds will come and go overnight tonight, so temperatures be up and down a bit, around zero, still a touch of frost in places, and maybe one or two very light sleet or snow flurries, but nothing particularly significant. And then tomorrow, like today, for most of the day it's going to be cloudy, a few very light showers around, but there will be of sleet or snow maybe on the hills, but very light showers, and perhaps just one or two bright spells coming through to cheer things up for the afternoon, but still most places cloudy, and everywhere will be cold again tomorrow, 3, maybe 4 degrees at best, but a chilly day for us all tomorrow.
Thanks, Martin. Well, that's all from the late team for now. We'll be back during GMTV tomorrow morning, but now it's back to the ITV News team in London. Good night.
Hello again, a reminder of tonight's main news. The Liberal Democrat leader Charles Kennedy was forced by an ITV News investigation into admitting he had been treated for a drink problem. He's previously denied such allegations. He then called for a leadership vote and said he would stand in it, but some Lib Dem MPs say he has to go. And the Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon remains gravely ill in hospital tonight. So what have tomorrow's newspapers made of Charles Kennedy's admission? Well, his photograph dominates the front page of The Times. Inside, the paper's editorial says drink alone is not the issue is his leadership. The Sun contrasts the fortunes of Mr. Kennedy with those of the Prime Minister, who's told the paper he's no intention of standing down yet. The paper's editorial asks, are people going to vote for a man who might reach for the bottle when the going gets tough? I've drank, I've stopped and I'm staying is how The Guardian sums up the statement. The paper says the crisis threatens to cripple the Lib Dems in the run-up to May's local elections. And The Telegraph describes Mr. Kennedy's speech as a dramatic attempt to save his career. Its editorial says that by not recognising his problem until now, he has severely handicapped his party's prospects. And that's the way the world looks tonight. So from all of us here, good night and thank you for watching.
ITV National Weather, sponsored by Powergen.
Yes, Jack Frost comes out at night and paints frost on windows. I'll give him community service myself.
Hello, good evening. There's certainly a wintry feel to things at the moment, with a few flurries reserved tonight for the northeast. Ditto southern parts, an accumulation of perhaps a few centimetres on the hills, on the moors as well. Elsewhere, cloudy skies, some clear slots, a bit of a frost around, but not desperately cold, around freezing or below temperature-wise. Into tomorrow then, and it's more or less a repeat performance of today's weather. Some brightness, a couple of snow flurries and a lot of cloud. As for our temperatures tomorrow, 2s to 3s in the south. That's only the mid-30s in Fahrenheit, so well pegged back. And with a weekend, very cold one in the offing. Depressed temperatures Saturday, ditto Sunday, few snow flurries too. Come Monday, the warming process gets underway. 9 degrees, 48 is a high.
Positive energy from Powergen.
If I ever catch you, young Frost,